Hey, this is Adrian Shepard with Springtime Nations, and I just wanted to make a quick video. On Tuesday this week, the 18th of July, 2023, Libertarian Party New Hampshire, which is under the control of the Mises Caucus, released a tweet critical of Nina Turner, who is the socialist congressman from Ohio. Nina Turner's tweet said, "Insulin should be free. Medicine should be free." Now, Libertarian Party New Hampshire responded, "Nina Turner picking crops should be free." I think instead of going over the argument that these are equivalent statements, which I think is fairly self-evident if you understand libertarian ethics, and I also don't want to make this a quote-unquote update to my video on the Mises Caucus taking power in the Libertarian Party and its effects, because I think to a certain extent the proof will be in the pudding in 2024 as a good test of whether or not this strategy is really panning out. What I want to talk about in this video is the concept of provocative rather than welcoming messaging for a political party. Because a lot of the criticisms that come from good faith individuals is not necessarily that the logical point is wrong that the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire is making, but rather that we should not phrase things in a way that can be construed as offensive. The argument goes that someone who really doesn't know that much about libertarianism will be turned off by the implication that the ideology is racist or offensive, callous, etc. in some other way, and therefore will not take their research into the ideology any further. I think there's some problems with this approach. Now, it is true that most people, most of the time, use very lazy heuristics to decide whether or not to support or oppose any given policy or any given ideology based on irrational things. For example, the largest being social proof. Do most people support this thing already? Or maybe more precisely, do most of my tribe support this policy or this ideology? People stuck in this line of thinking are not going to be the kind of people that libertarianism is going to attract, broadly speaking. To the extent that we do actually, quote-unquote, attract them to libertarianism, it's going to be a very tenuous relationship. They're not going to be very loyal to the ideas. You can see this with all the quote-unquote neoliberals, members of the Pragmatist Caucus, not only leaving the political party, the Libertarian Party, after this, but also renouncing the term libertarian, joining other political parties, other non-libertarian political parties. If we do not gatekeep our institutions, we should not be surprised that they're full of fair-weather fans that will leave and apostatize the moment that something doesn't go their particular way. And by their way, I mean making it more and more moderate. On the other hand, there's another subset of the population that is open to real, robust discussion, does not get hung up on offensive terms or offensive analogies, but instead looks at things as they truly are, the logical arguments. Those people will not be turned off, and they may even be more interested in our ideology if we are willing to make harsh proclamations, put people's feet to the fire based on logical arguments. Insofar as I think the Mises Caucus political strategy is coherent, I think it's perfectly acceptable to make harsh proclamations, harsh, offensive analogies, be insensitive, if we are to get a really politically conscious, hardcore vanguard, which was the Rothbardian plan for the Libertarian Party in the first place when he co-founded it. With all this being said, it's also fine on these grounds to criticize that tweet in question. For example, if I was in charge of the Libertarian Party New Hampshire Twitter account, instead of seeming to proclaim that Nina Turner should be forced to pick crops, I think it would probably have been wiser to ask the question, would it be justified to force her to pick crops based on her own logic? This, I think, still keeps the harshness and the potential for offense by people who we are not interested in getting on board, but makes it clear that we are not actually advocating for forced labor. But otherwise, I think that this is a really good litmus test for whether or not you're actually consistent with libertarian principles, is whether or not you are, and this is aside from the people who have optics questions, which I think is a fair disagreement we can have, but people who are genuinely offended or think that this means that the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire and the Mises Caucus are racist, I think this is a good way to flush these kinds of people out, because these people are not healthy for a libertarian movement. So those are just my quick thoughts about this peripheral libertarian strategy issue. So with that, I'll say thank you for listening, and may 1,000 flowers bloom.